Welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us. Today, once again, we're looking at our preview of Trechoro that allows us to model SysML2. And today what we're going to do is we're going to look at some Trechoro navigation and how you move around the model and find things. My name's Scott Hebbard and I'm joined today by Stephen McGuire. Welcome, Stephen. How are you today?
Very well, thank you, Scott, and thank you for the introduction. Yes, what's going on here is that our model, even though we've only been working for a couple of hours, really in total, our models become, quite large. We've got, quite a few elements in it. If we just go and look at the browser window over here, you can see that, we've got all sorts of things that are making up our model now. Definitions, and these go down into different levels. We've got our vehicle configurations, model views. So all of that's become quite elaborate even in this small amount of time. So the user of the tool needs to have ways to be able to traverse the model and find the things that you're looking for. So the easiest thing to talk about is the browser window here. So we can look at this browser window and we've got the ability to look through and find the things we're looking for. And if it's organized well, that won't be such an onerous task. But as it gets larger, it becomes more difficult. But we look in here and we say, look, here are our example projects. We've got libraries at the top there, and we can look at the fact that there's CurML, SysML, and Sparx libraries, and we can expand those out and collapse them. So, that is the pattern within the tool, is that you can expand those out and collapse them as need be. So, under our simple sample or simple vehicle model, we've got analysis models and definitions. So again, we can expand that out and look at it. And the other thing is that we've got a diagram which enables us to find things as well. So on this diagram, we can see that there's a vehicle and an engine and a fuel tank. Makes sense for our vehicle. And the other thing is that we've got this little navigation, little breadcrumb here. So it's a navigation bar, and that allows us to, I guess, look through the model, and we can go, okay, here's a system or vehicle demonstration. We can go back and we want to go to an example projects, and then we want to go not to the hovercraft project, the simple vehicle model project, and then we want to go to definitions, and then we want to go to item definitions and say, there are our item definitions, and there we, again, can find our way around. Now, the tool has a number of other ways of navigating, Scott, that this is the pre-alpha or a preview version of the tool. So those things will come into play as we move into beta and production versions. But let's have a look at another really useful thing, which is the search. So up here on the start ribbon over here and on the explore panel, we've got a search and portals there. So we can go to search, and we've got a number of different searches. So recent diagrams, recent elements, all sorts of things there, diagrams and packages. But let's look at this one here, a model search. And let's just pretend that we're looking for something. I'm going to close this diagram down, and let's pretend that we're looking for some different things. So one thing I might be looking for is that, does the vehicle support gas as a fuel? Yeah. So I can just type gas in there and see what comes back. Now, what's come back is a whole lot of attribute definitions, attribute usages, and these are all coming from the units. And so if I look at, molar gas constant unit or specific gas constant value, I can right mouse click on there and say find in the browser, and you'll see now that that's part of this library, and you can see that it's moved all the way down through here into the specific gas constant value. So that's immediately located that if you didn't know where that was, and that's kind of a useful thing to do. So you might want to type in here something like volume, for example. So let's look at volume and say the volume velocity, the molar volume unit. And again, you can just say, look, let's go and find that in the browser. And again, that will come up. A lot of documentation windows there, but there's that one, the molar volume. So you can find things in anywhere in the model, whether in the libraries or not. Let's go and look for something else. Say you had something and you said, look, I want to look at finding some reference. I know somewhere in the tool there's some reference to operational characteristics. So let's go and look for that. And okay, it's found it, and it's a caramel documentation type of element. And so we can right mouse click on this and say, let's find that in the browser, as we did with the library examples before. There it is in the browser. And I could right mouse click on this and say, you know, find in all diagrams, but I can do that equally from this as well. I can go, let's find in all diagrams. So there it is there. It's come up in a diagram. It's kind of useful, and that must have the text in it there somewhere. So let's have a little bit of a read. I'll just use the pan and zoom features there. So we're looking for the vehicle captures the essential physical and operational characteristics. So no matter what that detail is, and you know how detailed it is, you will always be able to find the thing that you're looking for. So
it's not just the name of elements, but it's also the text describing it, which is another great reason to document things as you go.
Yeah, that's right, Scott. So again, I can, you know, let's have a look at something in action. So let's go back to my find. This is just to make you aware of this, Scott. I'm just using it straight out of the box, and as the window came up, but I'm using common searches, and there are all sorts of categories of searches: tests and verifications, requirements, external models, discussions, all sorts of things there. And each one of those has itself got a list underneath it. So you know, simple, extended, element attributes, all sorts of things there. So if you do
you can always constrain the search if you have too many results, if you want to narrow it down to something.
If you did the maths on that cross product, you'll see that there's a lot of different searches out of the box. But in addition to that, you've got the ability to go and create your own searches. So, you know, I'm not going to go into the detail of that here, but you can go and create your own search there, and it can be done at a query builder level, a SQL level, or an add-in level. So incredible amount of flexibility to find detail. So, you know, you might want to find things that were done between a particular time frame, that were done by a particular model author that had a particular status and a particular name. So, you know, there's just an infinite number of possibilities there. Let's type something else in here. Let's type in the BSFC, which is
I think there's an O at the start of that.
Oh, is that okay? Well, that will be a problem. Thanks, Scott, for picking that up. And this is what we're looking for. Someone's told us this little acronym, and we go, oh, I don't know what that's about. So let's go and look for that. There it is there. Let's go and look for it in all diagrams and see whether it's in the diagrams. No, it's not in any diagrams at the moment. So let's go now and say, well, whereabouts is it in the project browser? So find in the browser. There it is there. And let's go, well, it seems to be in the same package as this fuel economy one. Let's go and open that up. And we can see here that it's under this attribute here, but it's not on the diagram. But
not
I can
on the
easily,
diagram itself.
It's not on the diagram itself. But what I can do is put it on the diagram by going to this and saying, look, let's choose the attribute list there. And BSFC, which is the brake specific fuel consumption, I can right mouse click on that and say add to diagram, right? And then it goes onto the diagram. And of course, you know, I can add some documentation to that if I wanted to, you know, say, look, you know, put some documentation in there, and I'll just add some more documentation, and I can put that documentation in there for it. So I'll just cancel out of that for a tick. So that's kind of a lot of different ways of looking at the navigation. I'm just going to bring back another model that we looked at. Actually, maybe I won't bring that one back at the moment. I'll just close this diagram here. And let's create another package up here, and let's call it navigation. So I'm going to take it outside the the sandbox of the SysML, and I'm going to create another package up here, and I'm going to close that for kick, and I'm going to create a package, and I'm going to call it just navigation. Spell that correctly. And let's select that. I'll just create a package only. There's the package
So
there.
we've got a package called navigation now. Yeah.
Yeah, and add another diagram to that. Now, I'm not going to make it into a SysML diagram because I'm kind of outside that box, and I'm going to call it navigation. I'm going to call it home there.
Yep.
And I'll just create that diagram. There we go. It's opened up. And what I can do is I can't add non-UML things into the SysML, but what I can do is grab some of these things here, and I'm going to go, look, let's look at some of the diagrams there, and I'm going to close this down so we can look at this in a little bit more detail, and we'll go for our models here. So we've got our diagrams under our model views, and we've got vehicle part. So let's drag that diagram on and drop it on as a navigation cell. And here we've got a list of them. Now, Scott, we're working on this at the moment to create a SysML 2 specific set of these here, but let's just choose one of these. They're quite useful anyway. And now you can see that we've got that there. I can put a, and again, reiterating that we are outside the SysML world here, and we're going to put common elements here, and I'm going to put on some text, and I'm going to call it, vehicle. We've got simple vehicle navigation, and that's there, and I'm just going to put that on there. I can change that, Scott, by just going into my layout ribbon and choosing my font thing there and say, look, let's make that bold. Let's make it a little bit bigger, a bit more emphasis. Go okay to that. There it is there. I can change the, the color of it as well. Center the text here again, appearance, align text. Let's center that, and let's choose a different color for it. Let's go for, something like that color. So, that's there. We can do that. We've got our vehicle parts definition there. We can put some notes into this as well. This diagram describes the part of a vehicle. And that can help people there. So if we now, I'm going to save that diagram. If I click on this now, we're going to go through to that diagram. So, and we can do that any number of times. So, we did an analysis model earlier under our model views. So I think we had vehicle requirements definition. Let's do that one as well. Put our requirements on. Again, let's choose a navigation cell, choose the requirements one, remembering that we will have one specific for.
Yeah, so by the time we leave the preview phase, we'll have some SysML2 icons and graphics.
Exactly, Scott. And so, you can just keep putting these on here and set up any number of them that you want. This is an analysis one, so let's have a look and see if we've got a, magnifying glass there that will show that it's a analysis case. I think we'll just choose this one at the top here. I'll say, there's a calculation there. So all of those going in there, I can line them up like that. I can space them evenly across. All of that's incredibly useful. So now I've got this kind of different way of navigating through the model as well.
So combining the best of both worlds. On the SysML
right.
diagrams, you can't have anything else because it's isolated, but you can create a navigation system to all of your various SysML diagrams separately.
Yeah. Exactly, Scott. So I think that's a very useful thing. And don't forget, you can go down in multiple levels here. So in a big real world project, you might have all sorts of different engineering teams that are working on particular parts of your model. So you can create, not necessarily go to a finished diagram here, but you could go down to another level of navigation cells, right? So, and you might have this project level, you might have, requirements definition, management, other things. And then down to the engineering level, you might have sort of electrical engineering things, structural engineering, construction things as well. So infinitely flexible there, Scott. And we've just really touched the surface with the navigation, but I thought it was a good time to take a little a pause in our definition of some of the models to show people how to move around, because the models are getting big and they will get big very quickly. Remembering you can import things into the tool as well through a number of different interfaces, so that can end up making the model quite big quite quickly.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for showing us how easy it is to navigate around, both via the browser, via the breadcrumbs, doing searches, and seeing how all that works. To our audience, thanks for joining us today. Don't forget you can have a look at the Trechoro playlist on the Sparx Systems YouTube channel in order to have a look at a few other videos on this topic. And if you have any questions about System L2 or Trechoro, you can always reach out to Stephen via his LinkedIn credentials in the video description below. As always, thank you for your time and effort today, Stephen. It's been great to learn a little bit more about navigation in Trechoro, and I look forward to some future videos with you.
Thank you, Scott. One little thing in that I forgot to mention is that you see in the bottom right-hand corner of these navigation cells, there's a little round icon. That gives you a preview, so I can just select that. The diagram itself isn't open, but I can preview and say, hey, is that what I'm looking for or not? And so that's an easy way to make sure you're going to navigate to the right diagram. Remembering when you do click on them, you can click through to the actual diagram and start working. So,
yeah. Thank you very much for that one final tip on our Trechoro navigation video. Greatly
always a pleasure,
appreciated.
Scott. Always a pleasure.